Hello and welcome. It's Lisa Neller here with My Golden Life podcast. And we are focusing on women in the second half of life. And today we're going to talk about the importance of, of tending to your health during the second half of life. Not that you shouldn't prior to that, but this is the audience. And so I want to really focus on this time in your life. And so today I have a special guest. Her name is Melissa Deely. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here because I know you have a wealth of information. So, Melissa is the CEO of Your Guided Health Journey, and she's just chock full of information. We're going to give you ways at the end of this conversation to get in touch with her. She's also the host of Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast. So, again, we're going to talk about the importance of paying attention to your health, but first, what I'm going to ask you to do, Melissa, is just give us your story. And then we're just going to talk about what we need to take care of, what we need to be looking for, and all of that during the second half of life. And when I say second half, women are typically living somewhere between 76 and 80 years old in North America. Not sure the exact number, but when you look at the second half of life, using that number, it starts at about 41, right? So if you're 40 or over, this would apply to you. And all right, Melissa.
Well, thank you. And it's funny when you put it in numbers like that. I'm 56 now, and I fully plan to be a centenarian. So to me, the second half of life is when you hit that 50 mark. However, you're right. Based on the averages, if you're over 40, this is very pertinent information. So my story, I was in the corporate world for 24 years, and almost 10 years ago now, I was given an hour to clear out my desk and no word of thanks when big fish bought little fish and they didn't need me anymore. And in that moment, I knew that I didn't want to work for anybody else again. I wanted to do my own thing. And I had no idea what that would be. And I was open to being guided. And I knew that I wanted it to be more of service to humanity and the planet. And through the course of the next few months, I stumbled upon a company that specialized in brain health supplementation. And I thought, ooh, that's interesting because I know I use my brain 24/7, and no one's ever taught me that I could do more to support the health of my brain. And I also knew there was near epidemic levels of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I knew that I didn't want to go down that path. So, what if I started learning about how to care for my brain? And what if I just taught that to other people? And that would be my service. And at the same time, as I started learning this, I was thinking about my grandmother, who was 99 years old at the time and living by herself, fully cognitively functioning, caring for herself. And so I knew I had good genes. And something inside me said, is that enough? And so I started comparing her life to my life. And she was born in little old Christchurch, New Zealand, in the bottom corner of the world, before World War II, which is kind of the time frame from when we start counting when all the toxic chemicals were introduced post World War II, growing all their own food on their farm. And I was raised in Tokyo, Japan in the 1970s and early 80s with manufacturing plants spewing out toxins through into the air and all over me. So I knew I was more toxic than she was. And if I wanted to be on her path, which I very much did, I needed to do more. And so then I started learning about the need to detoxify our brain and our body. And not long after all of that, my oldest daughter got a concussion in her first grade 12 soccer game of the season. And she had just started using this brain supplementation. And its benefits are also very helpful for people with concussion. So I continued having her use it while also working with physiotherapists and doing all sorts of other types of treatments to guide her healing journey. And because I wasn't working full time, I was going to these appointments with her because it was all learning for me. And 2 months after that, I was driving to Vancouver and I got a phone call from the high school. Could I please go pick up my younger daughter because she had a suspected concussion from gym class?
Oh, no.
And in that moment, I was driving along the water and I looked out across the horizon and I went, really? This is how you show me my path? Stop taking out my children. And I only have two, and they were both taken out. And who has two concussions in one house at the same time? And really, grade 8 gym class, you get a concussion? So this was a clear sign that
Yes.
this is the path I'm supposed to be following and guiding other people's healing journeys. And because I live in Whistler and we have downhill skiing and downhill biking, we do have a lot of people with concussions. And it's a small town, so people knew our story and started calling me and asking for help. My son got a concussion. My husband has a concussion. I have an employee coming back to work with a concussion. How do I manage that? And then I was asked to work in a holistic clinic. And I wanted to. However, I couldn't because I couldn't get insurance because I didn't have a certification. So
Mm.
that drove me to going back to school, and I learned about health coaching, and I went back to school. And the moment I got there, I knew that I had landed in what I was meant to do for the rest of my life. And I also was going, wow, I'm in my 40s and I don't know all of this about my body. All of these little steps that I can take to improve my health and be proactive in my health so that I can live a long, vital life. We're not taught this through our school system, through our medical system, through the ads on TV. No, that's all about get sick and then take the next drug. And oh, if you have these side effects, then don't take it. And if you're on these drugs, then don't take it. And also in most of those ads, it says it may cause death.
Mhm.
That's what we listen to on the television all day long. And
Yes.
here I was starting to learn all of these things that I could do and take my health into my own hands and take responsibility for my health. And again, I could teach this to others because I realized if I don't know this, how many other millions of people don't know this? That we're also busy, getting a degree in something else. I have a commerce degree and, raising children and being a wife and a mother and a sister and all of these things where this information didn't just flow into our brains. And so that's when I started the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast so that I could get this information out in tidbits to people with the tiny baby steps that we can take in order to shift our life. And in terms of your audience and why this is so important, is that right now in North America, 6 in 10 people have already been diagnosed with one chronic illness, and 4 in 10 have more than one. And when you get that diagnosis of a chronic illness from a medical doctor, they will tell you, well, here's the drug, here's the pharmaceutical drug you have to take for the rest of your life. And what happens then is the body is going, no, that's not actually what I wanted you to do. That's not the shift I needed you to make to bring me back into balance so I could heal myself. That's just a band-aid on that symptom. So then you get a new symptom because the body's going, pay attention. I want you to do something differently. And if you go back to the doctor, you get another prescription. And when I talk about chronic illness, I'm talking about things like type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, leaky gut, autoimmune disorders, some forms of cancer, all of these that we've been led to believe by the medical system that the only way to manage them is to be on a drug for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And the reality is there is so much that we can do in order to get you off those drugs and because your body can heal. Chronic illness does not have to be a life sentence. It does take some work on your part. It does take some habit change. However, when you work with somebody that can guide you through the process, it can be done. And it's not a magic pill. It isn't going to happen overnight. You also didn't get that chronic illness overnight.
Right.
Nobody goes to bed healthy and wakes up and goes to the doctor and all of a sudden has some new diagnosis. It's been brewing in your body. The symptoms have been happening. And again, society encourages us to ignore the symptoms, push through, suck it up, or we
Yeah.
write them off as aging, all those aches and pains. Oh, it's just aging. No, maybe it's aches and pains that are trying to speak to you to say, do something different. Maybe it's triggered by inflammation in your body, and maybe that inflammation is triggered by toxins in your body. And what if you did a detox and got those toxins out and the inflammation went down and the pain goes away? Because we can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So a couple of things. First of all, I think that there's plenty of information out there that people could run across or research or whatever. And the truth of the matter is that they're not looking unless, like you say, they have a wake up call,
Hmm.
which, and then when I started this podcast, of course, the question I asked myself is, why does the world need another podcast? you know, and the answer I came up with was because there's going to be someone out there that's going to listen to this one versus a different one. And they're going to hear some information that they didn't know before. And so that's part of my justification for creating my golden life. Because like you, I believe we do have control over our health to a
Absolutely.
certain, to a big degree, to a large degree. And you're right about also the promotion and advertising in the pharmaceutical industry. That's all profit driven. They're not taking our health into consideration, our well-being, our brain health, which is another thing you mentioned, like the brain manages the entire body all the time,
Mhm.
24/7.
Literally.
So if you're messing with that, and if you're not feeding that
Yes.
proper nutrition, it's not going to function in the way that it's designed to function.
Exactly. And, this is nobody's fault in terms of if someone's going, oh, what have I done wrong? It's not about what you've done wrong. Get out of that mindset and instead get into a mindset of, okay, this is where I'm at. What can I do now? Right. And, we have nutrient deficient soil systems because ever since we went through, the agricultural industry started, it's just been take, take, take from the soils to feed more people. That's the pretense of doing this. However, the soils can't rejuvenate the nutrients in the soil. So if they're not in the soil, they're not in your food. So today, you would need to eat 9 oranges in one sitting to get the same nutrient quality that you got from an orange in the 1930s. And nobody's going to eat 9 oranges. There's so much fiber in that you would be full before you even finish the 9 oranges. And
Yeah.
so we definitely are behind the 8 ball in the 2020s versus 90 and 100 years ago. And so then it's a matter of, okay, what more can I be doing to support my health around this? And it's also just the awareness. If you eat a largely processed diet, you're getting about 17 of the 90 nutrients that your body needs to thrive every given day. Whereas if you're choosing to, you know, spend more of your money on the perimeter of the grocery store in the produce
Mhm.
section, right? And maybe the quality meats and away from all the boxes and packaging section of the grocery store, and you're preparing meals at home, you're already going to be ahead of the game in terms of the nutrients that you're intaking versus somebody that's eating pizza for dinner and McDonald's for lunch and I don't know, Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast, right? And there are people that do that.
I've seen that, and there are certain parts of the country, at least in the US, where it's worse than other parts of the country. Um, Certain cities that have the highest obesity rate, the highest rate of heart attacks. And, people are just not conscious of it. And a long time ago, I can't even remember when it was, I learned to shop the periphery of the grocery store, and then every time I look at the pastry section, I'm blown away by how much sugar is out on the
Yes.
counters that people are buying. In fact, my husband and I were at Walmart yesterday and we just saw a whole table of these sugar cookies decorated in red, white, and blue. And I said, it's just sugar on top of sugar. And ew,
Yeah.
that's the way I see it. But a lot of other people are like, they're gonna grab that sugar because they crave it and
Right.
all of that.
And it's not that you can't ever have sugar. However, I prefer to make my treats at home because when I make them at home, I can control the type of sugar that I'm putting in, how much sugar I'm putting in, and I know there's also no additional chemicals in it to enhance shelf life, et cetera, et cetera. So, to me, it's like it's not about denial and never having a treat. It's about 80/20.
Yeah.
Feed your body 80% of the time in the way that it wants to be fed in order to thrive. And that can allow it to handle the 20% of the time where you make different choices, either because you're out and you don't have control over your food, you're at someone else's house, or because you choose to engage in a special treat because it's the 4th of July or whatever, Christmas, etc. And so it isn't about denial. It's just about planning. And you can take that control. And the other piece that I think is a problem in today's world is, you talk about certain cities that have higher levels of obesity. People look around and see where everyone else is at, and they normalize it. So if everyone else is obese and I'm obese too, then that's okay. Or if everyone else is super stressed out and I'm stressed out, that's okay. As opposed to, don't worry about everybody else. Do what you need to do for you. Because
Yeah.
living in that high stress state does cause higher blood pressure and other health issues down the line. Literally, 90% of all doctor's visits are caused by stress and 60% of all dis-ease. And that obesity, people think, oh, it's too hard to get healthy. Well, how hard is it to carry all of that weight around? Like, what if we could just take 50 pounds off in the next 6 months and have you feeling lighter? And then you could see that it works. And then you could take another 50 pounds off. For me, I don't want to, I go back country hiking all the time, right? And camping. So I have to haul in my tent and my sleeping bag and my cooking pots and my dehydrated meals. And so I have a pack on my back and I don't even know what that weighs. However, it doesn't weigh 100 pounds. It doesn't even
Yes,
weigh
40
50
to
pounds.
50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
probably maximum 50 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And when that 10K hike is over and I get to take it off, I'm so relieved. Imagine if I had that 50 pounds on my body all the time and I couldn't take it off.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people are at. And you think it's hard to get healthy. I think it's harder to be unhealthy because you suffer. You
Yeah.
suffer from not having good mobility. You suffer from not feeling great, et cetera, et cetera. And it isn't a lot of work to get healthy. You just start with baby steps.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about that. Like, what are some things? So I always, you started it off by talking about the brain, and then we have brain health, we have heart health, we have gut health, right? Those are the main three. And then, of course, you have all these other organs that are affected by everything that we do. So let's talk about what someone in midlife, where they could start if they're not already um, engaged in a healthy routine, or they want to make some changes. What are some things you would recommend? And I'm just going to start with this because you know this, but like getting blood work done every
Mhm.
year, that kind of thing. What are some things you recommend?
Well, the more you know about what's going on in your body, the more power you have to take new action and the more motivation you might have to take new action as well. So knowledge is power. So yes, getting your blood work done with your doctor every year is really important. I also offer functional medicine lab testing that gets mailed to your home for labs that are completely different to what your doctor can even offer. So I run full panel hormone lab testing, giving you all 4 sex hormones, all 4 thyroid markers, your insulin markers, your vitamin D levels, your cortisol levels 4 times through the day, because our body isn't just one system. It's a whole, we have to look at the whole, right? So what is that cortisol? What are your cortisol markers? How are they impacting your hormones? How are your hormones then impacting your thyroid and your metabolism, causing weight gain? How is it impacting your insulin markers, and is it putting you on the path to type 2 diabetes? And vitamin D levels being optimum can really help with the balancing of all of this. So we want to know where you're at there. And that's just one lab. We do it with saliva and blood, so it's kind of a 2-in-1 lab. Another lab is looking at what's going on inside the gut. Hippocrates said all disease starts in the gut thousands of years ago. Science now has proven that. I like to flip it around and say all health starts in the gut. So is your gut healthy? Do you even know? With a simple urine sample, we can take a look and see what's going on inside your gut in terms of yeast and bacterial overgrowth, and that impacts your neurotransmitter function. And so is that healthy and at optimal levels? We also see your mitochondria function, with your energy powerhouses. So if you're dragging your butt and you feel like, you just never have energy, well, maybe there's something going on in your gut that's draining that, right? I just ran this for a lady who she's seen doctor after doctor after doctor, and nobody could figure out what's wrong with her. She's only 24, always fatigued. She's riddled with mold.
Oh, geez.
And mold is a really hard one to test for just by symptoms. But when we run a lab that shows us, then we know, right? And now she knows, okay, this is the issue. Now we know what to do with it.
Yeah.
There's inflammation lab testing that I do as well, because inflammation, a lot of people will hear inflammation is the root cause of all disease. It's not, because I want to say what caused the inflammation. However, knowing inflammation levels are important because so many people are living in chronic inflammation, triggered again largely by our foods and our lifestyle. And when our inflammation gets too high, it will trigger the switch to turn on the genes for the diseases that we're predisposed to. We're not automatically going to get disease based on our genes, which is what we used to believe. However, epigenetics now tells us that happens only in 5 to 10% of the cases. The other 90 to 95% of your health outcomes are actually triggered by your genes and your lifestyle. So how your lifestyle impacts your genes. Now, your lifestyle impacts your inflammation. If your inflammation gets too high, it will trigger a switch to turn on the genes for the disease you're genetically predisposed to. But that switch doesn't actually have to get turned on. And so
Yeah.
understanding your inflammation levels and being able to rebalance that is really helpful. I also run a food sensitivity lab test because every time you eat food that you're sensitive to, that actually causes inflammation in your gut. And we don't want that. And a lot of adults think, well, I don't have any food sensitivities. I eat everything. And when we run the lab and we show them and we take those foods out, not forever, this isn't an allergy, but we take it out to give the gut time to heal,
Yeah.
they feel so much better. And they're like, how come I never knew about this before? I said, you know what? You might have as a child. And you might have told your parents that you didn't want to drink the milk or eat the bread or whatever. And your parents weren't listening for several reasons. You know, several generations ago, food was scarce. And so you were lucky to get what was put on the table in front of you. And you were told kids in Africa are starving, just eat it. And you didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And so that overrides all of your innate systems and you stop listening to them. So they stop talking to you.
Yeah.
So that's a powerful test for people. And then we also do another lab which looks at heavy metals in the body as well as your mineral levels. And your mineral levels are also critical for your ability to thrive and have energy. And it shows the stress on the body over the last 30 to 90 days. It's a hair tissue test. So we take a sample of hair that's like 1 inch to 1.5 inches long. And then it also shows the heavy metals in the body: aluminum, lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. And in the world we live in today, I see heavy metals in just about every single lab test.
Mm.
And aluminum, it's in everything. It's in our tap water. It's in our deodorants. It's, if you cook with aluminum foil or aluminum pots and pans and you drink pop or beer out of aluminum cans, all of those little bits of aluminum get into your body. And over the course of a lifetime, it fills up to a point where it's now at a level that is toxic to your body. And we want to get that out because that's a neurotoxin. Hello, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, MS, etc., etc., etc. And mercury, I see that all the time, which is very common from fillings, the metal fillings that they used to put in our mouth. They had mercury in them. And you might have had them put in as a child. And now you're 40, 50, or 60 years old, and you've chewed food 3 times a day, every day for all of those years.
Yeah.
And so the teeth get worn down or it cracks, and then you've got mercury leaching out into your body. It's another neurotoxin. Or the other major source of mercury is our fish, big fish like tuna, swordfish, etc. And so I encourage people to stop eating those types of fish and choosing fish that are lower in the heavy metals. And I work with people through that and I give them lists. So if they do like fish, they can just change the fish that they're eating. And we can do a heavy metal detox to help get all of that out of the body.
So what are people looking at in terms of cost to have all this testing done? Because you could, I guess you could with a number of doctors maybe. I mean, I have a naturopathic physician and she tests a lot of these things for me, and my other doctor tests things for me. But and some of that is covered on insurance, and some people don't have insurance. Like, so looking at the cost and then what would that save you in the long run, you know,
Right.
um, in prevention?
Right. So obviously, depending on what test people buy, the price varies. However, say people bought the big five, which really gives us a good overview of what's going on in the body, and those are the labs that I just talked about.
Yeah.
Those are about $1,200 US to
Yeah.
purchase.
Okay.
And then I charge a fee to review all of those and write your wellness protocol. And then I don't just tell you now go do it. I
Yeah.
actually have multiple sessions with you, so a minimum of 4, so that we can go through the labs. It takes 2 sessions to go through all those labs. And then we have 2 follow-up sessions to see how are you doing on the protocols? How are you feeling? What do we need to tweak? Where are you at? And then another one maybe to start weaning you off some of the supplements because your body's come into balance and you don't need them anymore. Or another one because now you have a new health goal and you want to understand how to reach that health goal. So then my fee for that is $800 US to review that. So you're looking at about $2,000 US
Yeah.
to do this. And there will be, you know, supplements or protocols that, depending on what they are, that the supplements could be monthly, you know, and a good quality supplement to give you what you truly need, that can be, you know, maybe you're investing $100 a month. The protocols are $200 to $300 depending what they are. So that all might sound like a lot of money, but I
Not
wouldn't,
really. Not
I,
really.
well, for some people it might.
It might.
For you, no, because you're already there. I invest in my health, so I don't think so either. And I want to
Yeah.
give people a perspective
Sure.
because right now, the average North American is spending the last 10 years of their life in a nursing home. And the cost of that is right now $108,000 a year on average across the US. By 2030, that's expected to go to $141,000 a year. So that's $1.4 million spent on the last 10 years of your life in a nursing home, and that's not even your medical. That is just literally living in the nursing home and being fed and being cared for. All of your medical expenses are on top of that. And what quality of life do you have? Once you go into the nursing home, you never come out.
Yeah.
So I invite people to rethink it and
Yeah.
invest now so that you
Yes.
don't have to spend any time in the nursing home or minimal time in the nursing home at the end of your life. My grandmother ended up living to 2 weeks past her 101st birthday. She died at home in her sleep.
Yeah.
And yes, I was sad that my grandmother had passed, but I was also really focused on celebrating a life well lived, you know, really vital all the way until the end.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I don't want to spend any money in a nursing home. I'd rather invest now and be able to live fully and have good mobility through my entire life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think it's really sad, unfortunately, where too many people are already at. I was in Vegas last September. And, you know, those hotels are really big, and walking from the elevator, you know, from the lobby to the elevator can be quite far. And there were so many people riding carts because they couldn't walk that far.
I have a family member who can't walk very far. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I also know what has caused that. And it's, just a lot of carb consumption with no movement and a host of other things. But I hear you. I mean, I think it's worth it to make the investment early on. Um, find a way to create the money to do it if you need to, get creative, and get those tests done so that you can get back on track.
Right.
And
And it's funny because people, you know, if something goes wrong with their car, they can always find the money to get the car repaired, right?
yeah,
And they also take the car in for regular services potentially as well, and oil changes, etc. And the same with the house. If something goes wrong with the house, you know, I know someone who yesterday told me that they found mold in their foundation, so they're going to have to fix that. I know someone else who told me their hot water tank leaked. When things go wrong with the house, we find the money to repair it.
yes,
And yet you can buy a new car and you can buy a new house. How is it that we can't find the money to look after our own body, our temple in this
yeah.
lifetime? that we cannot go to the store and buy another one of.
Right. This is it, folks. This is all you get.
Exactly. And so that's the mindset shift I invite people to think about, especially, in the second phase of your life, because now you maybe are starting to think, oh, I don't have so much time left. Maybe now is the right time. Yes, it's the right time. Yesterday was the right time. If you didn't do it yesterday, today is perfect. And the
Yeah,
beautiful
I
thing,
mean, so I'm like a whole decade older than you are, and I'm looking at the timeline, and I'd like to be a centenarian. I'm just assuming I'm going to be here another 30 years or so, right?
yeah,
So there's a lot to do in that 30 years, and I want to be
totally.
functioning really well to
Yeah,
be able to do all
yeah.
the things that I want to do. So anything else that aside from testing, um, as far as diet, lifestyle, exercise, I'm sure all those things you recommend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They are all very important. And in terms of just starting with little tiny baby steps that people can start with, I'm going to rattle off six very quickly. Now,
Okay.
you don't even have to start with all six, but these are like really the tiniest baby starting points for each one. And then we
Mhm.
build from there. So improve your hydration because that helps flush toxins in your entire body. It's largely made up of water. It needs that hydration. So carry a reusable water bottle with you everywhere you go and set reminders in your phone to drink it, or buy one that has markers on it for the times of day so you can make sure you're drinking enough. And when I talk about hydration, I'm not talking about pop, energy drinks, coffee, tea. What I'm talking about is water, and you can flavor it with the juice of half a lemon or half a lime, or your protein shakes, or herbal teas. That's hydration. Improve your diet. You can just start by serving yourself an extra serving of vegetables at each meal throughout the day, and maybe cook one extra meal at home per week than what you're doing right now, using some new healthy recipes. Increase your physical activity. Where are you at? If you are doing absolutely nothing right now, just start with walking. Get something to track your steps, and your phone will do it. Go and walk 1,000 steps. And if you feel okay after walking 1,000 steps one day, then do it again the next day. And if you still feel okay, then on day 2, walk 2,000. Or if you are already walking a little bit, just increase it by 1,000 every couple of days until you get to 10,000 steps every day. At that point, you can start to add in some cardio exercise. And then once you've mastered that 3 times a week, you can add some strength exercise. So we do everything in stages and we
Yeah.
meet you where you're at. So if you're doing nothing, I'm not going to send you to the gym for 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not sending anybody to the gym 2 hours a day, 7 days a week either. I just want
Yeah.
people to know we meet you where you're at, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Prioritizing sleep. How many people think I'll sleep when I'm dead? Sleep is overrated. I've just got things to do. I don't have time to sleep. Well, sleep is so important. It helps you become more stress resilient through the day. It helps with the health of your gut and the balance of the microbes in your gut for optimal digestion. It helps with managing your ability to maintain your weight because when we don't sleep enough, the body's looking for energy during the day. So, what do we do to get energy? We put sugar in our mouth because we want some quick energy, right? So, when
Or
we
caffeine. Yeah.
or caffeine, which does the same thing in terms of the insulin response. And when we're not sleeping enough, we're eating more calories every single day. And
Yeah.
that actually if someone isn't sleeping enough on a regular basis, that can equate to a 15 to 20-pound weight gain in just a year from lack of sleep and nothing else changed. And
Okay.
sleep is 7 to 9 hours a night. That's what we're needing. If you're, getting sick, it's more at the 9 hours a night. If you're healthy, it's more at the 7 hours a night. But these people that are surviving on 5 or 6 hours and saying, I'm good, that's all I need, you might be good right now. That will have a negative impact on your long-term health. So sleep is important. Create a consistent bedtime routine in a sleep-friendly environment. And again, I dive so deeply into sleep with so many different steps that if somebody wants help with their sleep, reach out because I'm happy to help you. Stress management. I've said earlier, we live in a stressed out world. We look around, we see everyone else is stressed out too, and we normalize it. And yet it's the cause for so many doctor's visits and so much disease. So, what can we be doing to support ourselves? We're so busy looking after everyone else that we don't look after ourselves. And that's where we need to start. And again, I've got so many different tools and things to make this easy for people to implement, but you just find something that you love to do. Is it some kind of relaxation exercise, yoga, stretching? Maybe you don't like meditation, but you could just go outside and sit in the sun with your face up to the sun for 5 minutes just to enjoy that. Maybe it's some deep breath work. There's lots of things that we can do in short amounts of time to break up your day and just calm your nervous system. And then detox regularly. So whether you're integrating detox-friendly foods into your diet, or maybe you're exploring a quarterly detox program, which is what I like to do. And I do a 1 day a week as well. Just give my body a break. Our bodies were never designed to eat the quantity of food that we eat and take in the calories that we take in. Our digestive system needs a break. And it's only when we get out of digestion that our body can start self-cleaning. And so I'm not suggesting people who've never done anything to just suddenly start, fasting 1 day a week. No, we again bring this in gently, and I have an online guided course that take people through a 21 detox and set them up for success. And once you've done that one, to clear everything out, just stay on a rhythm of quarterly detoxes. And then when you're ready, you can bring in a weekly fast day. And when you combine all of these things, that's how you take control of your health. The three main triggers of chronic illness, all types of chronic illness, are high toxic load, low nutrient uptake, and high stress.
Say that one more time. High toxic load,
Low nutrient uptake, and high
low
stress.
nutrient uptake. I'm taking notes. Okay.
And high stress.
Okay.
So when we address all three, we are greatly reducing your risk of chronic illness, as well as if you have a chronic illness, that's the starting place for helping to reduce your symptoms and get your body into a place of healing. A body can't heal in a stressed out state. The body
Yeah,
has
that
to
makes
be.
sense. That makes sense. I used to teach a yoga nidra class, and it was everybody's favorite class, yoga, total relaxation. You've heard of it.
Yes.
Um, okay, so your 6 things were hydration, drink more water, improve your diet, adding some extra vegetables and fruits and healthy foods. Physical activity, get moving, even if it's just a little bit. You start with a short walk and improve that, and then sleep 7 to 9 hours. And I totally get that, because when I don't get enough sleep, I just don't function as well, and then stress management and detox regularly. Okay, those are great things to work on. And then let's talk about, Melissa, where people can find you. Give us all your information, and we'll put those links in the show notes as well.
Sure. So my website is simply yourguidedhealthjourney.com. My email address is melissa@yourguidedhealthjourney.com. My podcast is Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call. I am on LinkedIn and Facebook as Melissa Deely. And those are my main 2 social media. And I really don't do a whole lot of social media.
Okay. Well,
Reaching out by email is the best way to connect with me. Say that you heard me on this podcast, and I'm most efficient at replying through that channel.
fabulous. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I just really want people to know to give yourself some grace. Wherever you're at is where you're at. It doesn't serve to beat yourself up or live in a place of regret. Simply choose now that you know all of this to do something differently, and ask the question, how can I, so that you can move forward. And the beautiful thing is that it is never too late. The body, when we create the environment for it to heal, it responds really quickly and starts healing. And every single person I've ever taken through a 21-day detox, just in 21 days, starts feeling better, significantly better in some way, shape, or form. And then, of course, they want to continue. And that's the beautiful thing is, when you feel better, then you're motivated to keep going on your healing journey. And so, if you're not feeling great right now, how would it feel to you to feel better in just 3 weeks? And if you like the idea of that, then reach out and let's get you started on your detox program.
I love that. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. I do agree. Start where you're at. Don't beat yourself up. Love yourself. I mean, I think really that's the bottom line,
Mhm.
is that taking care of your health is loving yourself.
Yes.
And I know some people think that's a weird concept, but love yourself first and
Yes.
take care of yourself first, and then you can be available for everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So true. You can't serve from an empty cup. And that was one of the first things I learned when I started in health coaching school. And it was such a shock to me because I thought I had to look after everybody else first. And only if there was time after doing all of that could I look after me, and that to do it any other way was selfish. And then I got told that self-care is the most selfless act. And I went, huh? Wait, what? What did you say? And it really kind of blew my mind. And then when they explained it, I realized, oh my goodness, I've been doing this all backwards. And I made a mantra around it in order to shift my actions and change my life. And it has been so profound. And that mantra is that self-care is the most selfless act because it allows you to show up and give the world the best of you instead of what's left of you.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Thank you.
when I realized I was giving my husband and my kids what was left of me as opposed to the best of me, that's what made me realize, okay, I got to change this. And I did. I started putting me time in my calendar, and I started asking for support and help because we can. And people want to help. They just don't know how to help until you ask.
Yeah. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being a guest on My Golden Life today. I know that you've reached some people who are maybe contemplating or thinking about their health and want some guidance, and you are the guide. So I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much. And perhaps we'll do this again in the future.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here. And one other link I will send you is a quiz to discover my toxic load or discover your toxic load. So I'll send you that to put in the show notes as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Melissa. Have a fabulous day. And everybody else watching and listening, you have a fabulous day also. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.